Anyway, so here we are, citation of scriptures. Um, and the very interesting citation of scriptures. You know, these are citation of scriptures leading into the, it's a bit of an advertisement for the discussion and meditation on dependent arising. And it's interesting that what's chosen puts dependence in the context of causes and conditions. From Nagarjuna, and then the quote from Chandrakirti puts it even more specifically in the fourth line on produce from self, other, and so forth, both and neither. So in the third line, dependence on causes and conditions. So the arising, you see, arising and dependence, dependent arising. In the second line, production from self, other, and so forth meaning both and neither. One could expand the self and so forth, to other types of production beyond self, other, both and neither. Production of one and many, and other types of production of the existent. Is the existent produced or the non-existent produced? I'm trying to think of the types of production that Giant Shepherd covers in his book on tenets. And that's 3 so far, 3 or 4 so far. But it's interesting that the type of dependent arising gets specified in these two quotes as dependence on causes and conditions, and the causes and conditions as being causes and conditions that are the same entity, self, as the effects, other entities from the effects in relation to the effects, both self and other, same entity as the effects and other entities, which is the position of the Jaina school, Jain, generally referred to as Jain nowadays, but also Jaina. And neither. Just that things like, why are thorns sharp? Well, that's just the way they naturally are. Why do we suffer? Well, that's just how things are. Why do we have pleasure? That's just the way it is. Don't look to causes and conditions. That's the moral nihilist view. Buddhist view being that all pleasure and pain arises from karma. All. even the pleasure of a cool breeze, or the pain of a cool breeze. I'm laughing because one day out for a walk with a couple of friends, we passed by on a nearby street, and elderly woman, I looked on her as elderly, I don't know who was older. And she was getting rid of some old flatware, and it truly was flat. It was steel, and it's very nice. I really liked it a lot. And it was very wide flatware. And for instance, the soup spoons were very wide, and I always liked to use them. And I thought they were great. And I mentioned that, and she said, "Oh, I have more inside." And I didn't want to trouble her. It's my usual way. But then I always regretted it afterwards. Oh, I should have asked her for the others. She, in fact, was anxious to get rid of them. And my friend, who's the same age as myself, he wanted them. And I was sort of like, "Oh, no, don't bother her." And, the sort of regret you have for stupid things, Later, I think, well, I should have asked her for them. And here I am, a year later, regretting that I didn't ask her. A really stupid regret. How stupid can you be? Here I am pretending to give a talk about such profound things, and yet I'm stupid enough to regret about something. Maybe she's passed away by now. Maybe she moved, right? Am I going to try to look her up and say, and I'd think, stop being so stupid.
What did it say about grief and men's heart?
Right. Right. Regret should not, like, and so when I said pain from a cool breeze, I thought, this morning when I put out the spoons for the porridge, I chose not those, because now the coldness of the flatware bothers my hands. The prized flatware. Now, there's no chance I'd try to look her up. Except maybe if it was really hot. It's like, what would I do if I saw her outside of her place on the sidewalk? I'd never look her up, but, do you still have that? No, I could never bring myself to it. So and when you think of it, why is it that we can enjoy something, that we can take pleasure in something? That comes from inner conditions. It's not due to the outer thing. It's due to inner conditions. Without the inner conditions, how could we enjoy anything? When you think about it, it's due to inner conditions. Where do the inner conditions come from? No matter how great the outer conditions are, there have to be inner conditions. So at least there have to be some kind of internal conditions. And if you're racked, back to grief, if you're racked with, internal psychological problems, you can't enjoy anything. Well, I can't enjoy anything, right? So that's some sort of karma that comes from, at least earlier in this lifetime. Wow. Yeah. So, cuts through the nets of even, Chandrakirti says, bad views. That things, for instance, are produced from self, other, and so forth. So these are very interesting reasonings that will enhance the understanding of dependent arising. So it could be that we'll have to take a diversion and look in John Sheba's book on tenets to where he's relying on Chandrakirti's presentation of the production, the lack of production from self, other, both, and neither, in order to deepen the understanding, one way of understanding dependent arising. Because when we reflect, my body doesn't inherently exist because of being independent arising, sometimes the bare reasoning can just fall flat. Sometimes it doesn't, but there are many ways of enhancing it. Many ways. One of the ways is depending upon, dependent production produced from self, other, both, and neither. And so then you have to look into why not produce from self? Why not produce from other? Why not produce from both? Why not produce from neither? None of those three. Neither. Blah, blah. So, when I stated that effective things, and the word is just things, and when the referent is to impermanent or between impermanent things and permanent things, I'll add in the word effective to make it clear that it's effective things. And as Tsong-kha-pa, when the context is given earlier, he points out that first you realize that impermanent things are dependently arisen and therefore do not inherently exist. And then you extend that understanding to non-effective things. That doesn't mean the horns of a rabbit or the hairs of a turtle or the children of sterile parents. That means their own biological children until cloning works, right? We're not talking about that, but actually existent things. Non-effective there means things, then phenomena. It's extended, and so then there's reasoning that will take place after the original reasoning about effective things works. Hence, I, Tsong-kha-pa, will speak in brief here about the procedure of the reasoning of dependent arising. And you can compare this layout, of every sentence, if you wish. It can help just to notice what's been added from the single annotations from the 4 annotations book. Giant Shiva's edition was merely citation of scriptures. He merely added the heading. And Dati Geshe Rinchen Tundrup, who was from Sarache Monastic College, added all of the other words. And lately in books, I've been putting what Giant Shiva added in yellow and what Dati Geshe Rinchen Tundrup added in blue. In this, I didn't do any color coding. That when I did this translation, I thought, just let people read it and compare the two, compare it on your own, that it might be easier to read. And with color coding, maybe it'll just make it harder to read. I don't know. I've gotten used to the color coding. Okay, pitfalls. So there's an online dictionary put together by Christian Steinert. Giving the dictionaries by Hopkins, Ranjung Yeshe, Alex Berzin, James Valby, Ives Waldo, Dan Martin, Richard Barrett, and the Dungar Tsingzer. He's got my dictionary from 2015. Place where one can go wrong, place of possible error, place of deviance, just to point, actually this isn't the place where this is to be brought up. We talked about this earlier, but, we talked about is this going to come up again? Ooh. Well, let's not do it. Let's just go on. Oh, the pitfalls. Yes, okay, I'm sorry. Wow. Maybe I'm tired already. Pitfalls. Pitfalls is one of the translations. I wondered where I picked it up, and it may be from Richard Barron, who's a great translator of Gakyu texts. Nice guy also. Wonderful fellow. So, Ranjung Yeshe, point, place of going astray. Point at which one can go wrong. Place of possible error. Place of error. That's their first translation. Second translation, deviation, straying, way of going astray, error, potential error, misdirection, misunderstanding, perversion. So, place where you can go astray, but then also the misunderstanding itself, the perversion itself, the misdirection itself, the potential error, that's the place where you can go wrong. The error itself. Then, the third version is the place to stray into. You see, Hopkins takes it as the place where you could go wrong, or the place from which. But place to stray into, the sidetrack. You can see the falling place. And then the fourth, the Ranjung Yeshe, the fourth is rampant confusion. Berzin has one, deviation, the deviation. Which doesn't seem to be the place from which you deviate, but the place into which you deviate. James Valby, mistake, pitfall, misunderstandings, going astray, perversions, deviation, as in when you're contemplating and you're distracted, you get distracted off into something. Errors, strayings, sidetracks, deviations. Eves or Ives, Waldo, I don't know. But, because I look in this dictionary. It's a great online dictionary. Place of error or wrong path. A place to stray, fall, err, go astray, go wrong. And then cliff, which was brought up last time. Deviation, straying, error, misunderstanding, perversion, rampant confusion. Dan Martin always has looks into things deeply, into Sanskrit and so forth. Turn-offs on the road to enlightenment, sidetracks. And he goes lam curl, and he's got a Sanskrit of unmarga. And I thought, unmarga? I thought, wow, is that a unmarga? I'm going to look that one up. I think there's something, there's a mixture of English in there. And Dan doesn't make that kind of mistake. Taking the wrong way. Perhaps he gives another Sanskrit, vivarta. I mean, to turn away. That's really inventive. Go astray. Or utpata, or vipata. Pata means path. And ut means like out, or v means away from the path. Wrong route. And that's really cute. Richard Barron, pitfall, point of potential error, misdirection, going astray, deviation, potential for error. The point of all these being, when you do this particular meditation, reflection, you get over a whole lot of potential errors. Was there a question? No, stretching of arm. And then the Dungar Tsingze Chemo, Tibetan. There's a gloss as Drabo, which is very interesting. It's really sort of almost amusing. It's so tickles my fancy. A likeness. But then his takes it as the basis that is the place where the mistaking comes. You're mistaking something for being the real one. So his, like mine, is the place where one can go wrong, place of possible error, place of deviance, but place where you're mistaking something for being the real one. So because you're using dependent arising as the reason, you're held back from the extreme of utter non-existence, of nihilism. And because the absence of inherent existence is the predicate that you're realizing, the quality that you're realizing, you're held back from the extreme of exaggeration, superimposition. So you're being held back from the two extremes. And thus the relevance of bringing up the topic of the two being held back from the two cliffs, but the word itself just is the places from which, at which one makes mistakes. The mistakes are the two extremes. So Venerable was wisely bringing up the topic of the two extremes. And the other metaphor that's used is of the two cliffs. And cliffs are used because if you fall down from a cliff, you fall way down and hurt yourself. It's as simple as that. This one is the non-trul yongsa. Non-trul, it means nor. These are two words that mean mistake. Nor means mistake. Trul means mistake. Error. Both mean error. Both mean mistake. Yongsa. Yong means, agata. Agam. Come. Sa means place. The place of the coming of mistakes. Places of the coming of mistakes. Errors. So there's protection in using this reasoning because one is using dependent arising. Okay. So superimposition is to imagine in this. So you can see pitfalls. I settled when I was translating this on pitfalls, but really places where one can go wrong really says it, or places of possible error, places of error, places of possible error, places of deviance, places of the coming of mistake. Maybe the totally literal translation of the Tibetan definition, places of the coming of mistake. What do you think? Hmm?
I like the literal.
Yeah. places of the coming of mistakes, are the extremes of, pitfalls. I mean, it doesn't say enough. Are the extremes of superimposition and deprecation. Superimposition, adding something on. Exaggeration. And deprecation. These are to imagine what does not exist to exist. That's superimposition. That's so hard not to do. As in misapprehending phenomena to inherently exist. As in imagining, as His Holiness said, sitting across from him in his office, it's adding on an extra measure of beauty or ugliness, or an extra measure of the value, the advantages or disadvantages of something. Which promotes lust or promotes hatred. Such that when it's totally stupid to keep wanting more of this old flatware that somebody wanted to get rid of, I keep wanting it. Respectively. Never mind. That's a small example. Shall I go on and list all the others in my life? Jeffrey, spare us. And to imagine what indeed does exist, not to exist, as a misapprehending that phenomena do not exist at all. Or to imagine, that it wouldn't help to give $1 a month to the New York Times to support their journalists. When dependent arising is used as the reason for establishing the phenomena empty of inherent existence, the two extremes are easily avoided. Okay. Right. Now, an important point is that once one looks into this, one of the jobs of debaters is to raise issues to make a mess of any topic to the point where you can't think about it anymore. And that's what makes raving fanatics out of any religious person. Because what do? You turn to something that's easy. You turn to something like worshiping some, protector deity or whatever. That's easy. You just say, oh, yeah, okay, I'll worship. Archie Bunker. Well, if you're old enough, and grew up in America, who Archie Bunker was. Just a frickin' jerk, a raving madman who hated all other ethnicities except a certain type of white person, white man. So this meditation appears toward the end. Let's see. It's on page, I have up on the top of my screen the 4 annotations, which means I have all of Tsong-kha-pa's great exposition of the stages of the path and the 4 annotations, which, as I've said before, is only 2 annotations at this point. So this is on page 708 of the 870 pages. So it's way late. You know, it's 160 pages from the end of the 870 page great exposition of the stages of the path, including the 4 annotations. And I've been translating the section on the topic that includes, that culminates in what an other approved inference is. And I'm within, about 12 English pages of finishing, and I'm in the section where Tsong-kha-pa's laying out his example of what a good other approved inference is. In other words, consequentialists use not only consequences, but also syllogisms. Shall we say, straight, out-and-out syllogisms in order to generate inferences in others. And these inferences, these syllogisms, use elements in them that are approved by the other person, by the opponent. But Tsong-kha-pa has gone through a very long section that I have almost completed translating with Pratikesha Rinchen Tundrup's commentary and Jayan Sheba's section headings, myriad section headings, very helpful section headings, where Tsong-kha-pa shows that not only with these syllogisms does the other party, the opponent, accept the elements, but the consequentialist also accepts the elements. Also. Now you would think, because it's called other renowned, that only the other person would accept all these elements, but Tsong-kha-pa goes to, following Chandrakirti, he shows that not only does Tsong-kha-pa himself show that consequentialists accept the elements of the syllogism, this kind of syllogism, but Chandrakirti does too. Now, most people around the world think that consequentialists only use what look like syllogisms based on what the opponent accepts, and therefore these are called renowned or approved by the opponent. But Tsong-kha-pa goes to huge lengths to show that this sort of syllogism, this sort of reasoning is accepted by the consequentialist, herself, himself.
But where does the name come from? Other renowned or
Yes.
other approved syllogism.
And
the meaning is both approved.
yes, I know. And you'll have to read the book. And fortunately, it's got the Tsong-kha-pa's Tibetan is present throughout. I have not put in, as here, I have not put in Dati Geshe Rinchen Tundrup's Tibetan. Gomang supplied me with the headings, Giant Sheba's headings, so they're all in it. And I'm reading Dati Geshe Rinchen Tundrup's Tibetan, and it would be nice if I could get somebody, one of the people in the Institute to type this out for me. It would be fairly easy for somebody to do it, but frankly, I don't want to spend the time to also do that. It would be helpful to also have the Dati Geshe's Tibetan too, because the expansion of what Tsong-kha-pa is saying is very helpful. Occasionally, Giant Sheba steps in and gives a few comments. And so, fortunately, Boris, Tsong-kha-pa asked just the question that you're asking. Well then, why is it called other approved? Yeah. And if we have the time, we should, I've taken out, that's why I'm doing, I've done Giant Sheba's, there are 3 volumes already of Giant Sheba's work on this. And then now I'm finishing up Tsong-kha-pa's work on it. Yeah. It's, yeah. And you can buzz through it also in English and then zero in on such issues. If you don't want to spend 3 years reading it. Okay. So this is the meditation, and it's also a contemplation as you read the text, trying to pull out the meaning. So, here's the syllogistic statement. A sprout, so my body, your own body, my own body. So, obviously we're not talking about Jeffrey's body. Is without the nature of being established by way of its own entity. So, number one, getting that meaning. We talked about it a little bit last time. Being established by way of its own entity can't be something can't just mean is independent. Independent, or even if you use the word independent, it can't mean, oh, it's utterly independent and doesn't depend on anything. Which would obviously be knocked downable. But the opposite would be, it's got to have something of its own thing. It can't just be a figment of the imagination. Because of rising independence on its own causes and conditions, like, for example, a reflection. So, breaking it down, the subject is my body. Hooray! Painting, not painting, having a pretty good time. Hey, I woke up this morning and I thought, wow, there's not much pain this morning. I got through the whole night. Is without the predicate of the thesis, is without the nature being established by way of its own entity. What's the sign or the reason? Because of rising independence upon its own causes and conditions. Similar example, like, for example, a reflection. And then Tsong-kha-pa goes into this beautiful example, this really, he really lays out the example. I really got tied up in this morning. And I got so tied up in it, I forgot to go take a nap. And fortunately, we're almost at the end of the hour. Now, there are various types of examples when it comes to meditating on emptiness. One is where you use the actual reasoning. You use the actual reasoning. And the other is where you use something like the reasoning. And when you use the actual reasoning is like where you use the sevenfold reasoning, Chundrakirti's sevenfold reasoning, and you use the actual reasoning like you say, like, for example, my car. And you use the actual reasoning to get used to the reasoning, like for example, a chariot. So, in other words, you use my car, and if you don't happen to own a car, like, for example, the monastery's car, or somebody else's, some car that you've taken a fancy to, or not a fancy to, or one you're somewhat familiar with. My parents' car, my mother's car, that she used to take me to the doctor in a clothes basket, woven, and set the basket on the floor of the old car, 40s, 1940, born September 30, 1940. So probably memories from then, even in the 40s, but at least in 41. And I remember that car. Set me on the floor, in the front seat, not on the seat, but on the floor. A whole lot of cars appear to my mind. I got to choose one. So, and use the reasoning to get used to the reasoning, but maybe not realize emptiness in terms of that reasoning, but use the reasoning with that. Do you follow? I don't know how you'd hold yourself back if you got to the point of actually realizing emptiness. Do you follow? Using the sevenfold reasoning with respect to a car, and then shifting over to your body. You know, a more neutral topic like a car, unless you're particularly addicted to that car. But using it a lot, so you got used to it. You know, you couldn't just say, oh, I'm just getting used to it. I'm going to hold myself back from realizing emptiness. Because you see, if you realize the emptiness of one thing, you realize the emptiness of all things by merely turning your mind to it. So then you see, it wouldn't be an example. You see, I said, you make a mess. An example means you're going to transfer this over to what you're really realizing. But if you I mean, almost have a joke here, but really realize it with the example, you're not going to have to transfer the reasoning, because when you realize it, you just have to bring in the other topic, like your body, and you'll just, your understanding is so strong. You just shift to that topic and you realize it immediately. You don't have to use the reasoning. The reasoning is so strong. You just shift to the topic and you realize it. You shift it to anything, you realize it. Shift to anything. Anything you think of, you'll realize it. So, if you use the actual reasoning, see, it may be that you'll have to bring it over to a more touchy topic like your body, because touchy, oh, that's a bad one. But anyway, touchy topic, in other words, you got more hang-ups, and so you'll have to plow through some hang-ups, because you won't be able to. Do you follow? What's going to keep you from realizing it with respect to a car? It'll be because you've got hang-ups with regard to another topic. If you can realize it with respect to one thing, and that'll be so powerful, you can just turn your mind to another thing, and you'll realize immediately its emptiness. It means you've broken through all those hang-ups. You see, thus the importance of maybe doing a whole lot of reasonings like going and coming. You see, different reasonings. Some reasonings may work also, and shifting topics may be very helpful. And then also, instead of using the reasoning, dependent arising, with respect to a reflection, thinking about, I was going to say reflecting on a reflection, but we've had enough of these. Sorry, we've gone over the time. 3 minutes over. Instead of thinking about the reasoning, thinking about a reflection. And that's what Tsong-kha-pa is doing here. He's not using the reasoning of dependent arising about a reflection. He's suggesting thinking about a reflection. So we'll go on from there next time. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.